Welcome, YouTubers, to another episode in my Grammar Hero series. In this video, there's going to be 16 practice test questions that should closely mirror what you should expect to see in the arithmetic reasoning subtest of both the Armed Services Vocational Aptitude Battery, that is the ASVAB, as well as the pre-screening Internet Delivered Computer Adaptive Test, that is the PiCAT. In order to get the most from this video, of course, you'll want to pause the video after I read each question, attempt to solve the question on your own, and then resume playing the video to check your solution. As a quick reminder, you're not permitted to use a calculator or a reference sheet on the actual ASVAB and PiCAT, so I would recommend that you work out these problems on scratch paper. Additionally, I want to mention this very quickly. For every topic that appeared in this video, I'll include a link in the description. And in that playlist, you'll find 25 or more practice test questions for all those topics. And I guarantee you that if you go through that playlist from start to finish, you'll have mastered that topic in and out. Finally, I want to say this. Please do not spend more than $30 on test prep in total, including on tutoring for the ASVAB and PiCAT. Again, this test covers mostly elementary, middle school, and very basic high school math. In my opinion, the vast majority of you will pass this test on your first try as long as you spend a few days to a month studying for it. Likewise, there are more than enough free resources on my YouTube channel to help you pass it very easily. So with all that being said, let's go ahead and get started with this video. This ASVAB PiCAT arithmetic reasoning practice test question says, if during training for a race, a cyclist covered a distance of 22 miles per day, how many days did it take the cyclist to cover 550 miles? So to answer this one, we're going to do some simple long division here. We're going to do 550 divided by 22. We start by asking ourselves, how many times does 22 go into 5 without going over? It doesn't. How many times does 22 go into 55 without going over? That's going to be 2 times, given that 2 times 22 is 44. 55 minus 44 is 11. Drop down this 0 now. 22 times 5 is exactly 110 with no remainder. So the answer to this one is it took the cyclist 25 days to cover a distance of 550 miles if they did 22 miles per day. This ASVAB PiCAT arithmetic reasoning practice test question says, if the population of a certain city increased by 5% in 2 years, then its new population is what percent of its old population? So for this one, we're going to have to use our own numbers. And specifically, you want to come up with numbers that are very easy to work with mentally. I'm going to say its old population was 100 people. According to the problem, its population increased by 5%. What is 5% of 100? That's plus 5 people. So its new population is 105. Let's answer this part of the question. Its new population is what percent of its old population? That's going to be 105 divided by 100. Anything divided by 100 just becomes a decimal that you move in 1, 2 times. So this is 1.05, which is the same thing as 105%. So this one is going to be D. Again, the key is to come up with numbers that are very easy to work with mentally. ASVAB PiCAT arithmetic reasoning practice test question says, how many 5-pound bags of apples can be made from 400 apples, each weighing a quarter of a pound? So we have 400 apples, and they each weigh a quarter of a pound. So how much do those 400 apples weigh? Well, we'll take 400 and we'll multiply it by 1/4. Again, if it's not obvious, what we're doing here is multiplying two fractions, because I could write 400 as a fraction by placing it over 1. Then you just multiply straight across. 400 times 1 is 400. 1 times 4 is 4. 400 divided by 4 is 100. So we have 100 pounds of apples. Again, from the 100 pounds of apples, we're making 5-pound bags. So we're going to divide this by 5 pounds for each bag. Cross out our units. 100 divided by 5 is 20. So you can make 25-pound bags of apples from the 400 apples if they each weigh a quarter of a pound. ASVAB PiCAT arithmetic reasoning practice test question says Andrew earns a weekly salary of $500 plus $500 for every car he sells. If he made $2,500 last week, how many cars did he sell? So we're going to translate these statements into a linear equation that we can then solve. Again, he makes $500 regardless of how many cars he sells. That's plus $500 times the number of cars he sells, which we'll call X since that's unknown. And we know last week he made $2,500. So we can solve this one for X. First, subtract 500 from both sides, like so. This becomes 500X equals 2,500 minus 500 is just 2,000. Divide both sides by 500 now to get X by itself. It says X equals, again, cross out these corresponding zeros. 20 divided by 5 is 4. He sold cars last week. ASVAB PiCAT Arithmetic Reasoning Practice Test question says for homecoming, 2,200 people attended a football game. If three-quarters of those who went to the game were not season ticket holders, how many were? So again, this is going to add up to one. We know that three-quarters of the people who went to the game did not have season tickets. That means one quarter of them did. Three-quarters plus one quarter is one. Now we got to figure out what 1/4 of 2,200 is. So we're going to do multiply 2,200. I could write 2,200 as a fraction by placing it over 1. When you multiply two fractions, you just multiply straight across. 1 times 2,200 is 2,200. 4 times 1 is just 4. Now we have a simple long division problem. We're going to do 2,200 divided by 4. How many times does 4 go into 2? It doesn't. How many times does 4 go into 22 without going over? It's got to be 5 times, given that 4 times 5 is 20. 22 minus 20 is 2. Drop down this 0. We know 4 goes into 20, so let's go ahead and drop down this other 0. How many times does 4 go into 200? That's got to be 50 times. 4 times 50 is 200 with no remainder. So, in other words, C, 550 people of the 2,200 people who attended the game did have season tickets. This ASVAB PiCAT Arithmetic Reasoning Practice Test question says a store had 6 hamsters selling for $12 each and 12 rabbits selling for $20 each. Today, only 1 hamster and 8 rabbits were left. In terms of dollars, what was the ratio of sales of hamsters to rabbits? So again, we had 6 hamsters. There's only one left. 6 minus 1 means 5 of them were sold at $12 a piece. Let's look at rabbits now. There were 12 in the store. Now there's 8. 12 minus 8 means 4 of them were sold, and they are $20 a piece. So this is our ratio. 5 times 12 is 60. 4 times 20 is 80. Again, we can cross out these corresponding zeros to make this ratio 6 to 8. And since both of these have a common factor of 2, we can divide both of them by 2. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So our ratio is B, 3 to 4. This ASVAB PiCAT Arithmetic Reasoning Practice Test question says a clerk processed 62 invoices in 4 hours. How many invoices can the clerk process working at this rate for 40 hours per week for 6 weeks? So we know they can process 62 in 4 hours. In addition, we know they work a 40-hour work week. To go from 4 to 40, we would have to multiply by 10. So that's going to hold true for our numerator as well. 62 times 10 is going to be 620. So they can process 620 over a 40-hour work week. To figure out how many they process over the course of 6 weeks, we'll take 620 and we'll multiply it by 6. This is 0, 12, carry a 1, 36, 37. So they can process 3,720 over the course of 6 weeks. This ASVAB PiCAT Arithmetic Reasoning Practice Test question says a submarine is cruising at a depth of 500 feet below sea level. If it ascends at a rate of 50 feet per minute to a depth of 50 feet in order to raise its periscope, how long will it take for it to ascend? So it's going from a depth of 500 feet to 50 feet. In other words, it's going to ascend 450 feet. Again, 500 minus 50 is 450. All right, and the question is this: how long will it take to ascend those 450 feet? If it ascends at a rate of 50 feet per minute, cross out these units, cross out these corresponding zeros. 45 divided by 5 is 9, so it's going to take it be 9 minutes to ascend to a depth of 50 feet. ASVAB PiCAT Arithmetic Reasoning Practice Test question says a family wants to arrive at the airport at 1:05 a.m. If it takes them 45 minutes to drive to the airport and 40 minutes to get ready to leave, what time should the family wake up? So again, they want to get there at 1:05 a.m. And for a problem like this, where we have to tell time, it's going to be easiest to work backwards, in my opinion. So let's subtract the 45 minutes it takes them to drive there. 1:05 minus 5 minutes would bring us to 1 a.m. Minus those 40 more minutes would bring us to 12:20 a.m. And then we got to subtract out the 40 minutes it took them to wake up. 12:20 minus 40 minutes brings us to 11:40 p.m. Again, once you go past midnight, you go from a.m. to p.m. So this one is D. ASVAB PiCAT arithmetic reasoning practice test question says if a concrete truck pours concrete into a rectangular form that is 12 feet long, 8 feet wide, and a half a foot tall at a rate of 6 cubic feet per minute, how many minutes will it take to fill it? So in this case, we're trying to find the volume of a rectangular prism. Again, that's going to be length times width times height. In this case, we know all these things. Our form is 12 feet long, 8 feet wide, and a half a foot tall. Let's go ahead and work this out. We should be able to do this one mentally. Let's do 1/2 times 12, which is going to be 6. So this becomes 6 times 8, which is 48. So we have 48 uh, cubic feet of space to fill. We're filling it at a rate of 6 cubic feet per minute. Let's go ahead and do this division. These units cross out. 48 divided by 6 is going to be 8. It's going to take 8 minutes. This ASVAB PiCAT arithmetic reasoning practice test question says a boy walked 2 miles to his friend's house. If he walked at an average speed of 1.5 miles per hour, how long did it take him to reach his friend's house? So for this one, we're going to use the distance formula to solve it. That is, distance is equal to rate times time. In this case, we know that the boy walked a total distance of 2 miles. So for D, we'll put 2. And he walked at a speed or a rate of 1.5 miles per hour. And of course, we're going to be solving for t. So to get t by itself, we're going to start by dividing both sides by 1 1/2. In doing so, this crosses out, leaving you a t over here. So we can see that t is equal to uh, 2 divided by, and let me go ahead and convert this to mixed numbers so we can proceed. 1 times 2 is 2 plus 1 is 3. So this is 2 divided by 3 over 2. Now, of course, it may not be obvious, but what we're doing here is we're actually dividing two fractions. Again, I could write 2 as a fraction by rewriting it as 2 over 1. 2 divided by 1 is 2. So now that we're dividing two fractions, we're going to follow the algorithm keep, change, flip. That is to say, we're going to keep 2 over 1 the same. We're going to change from division here to multiplication, and then we're going to flip this bottom fraction to be 2 over 3 instead of 3 over 2. And now when you multiply fractions, you just multiply straight across. This becomes 2 times 2, which is 4, over 1 times 3, which is 3. So it took him 4/3 of an hour to make it to his friend's house. We got to convert this back in terms of out to be in terms of hours and minutes. Again, there's 60 minutes in 1 hour, so we'll go ahead and multiply this by 60. Again, write 60 as a fraction by placing it over 1. And to make this math a lot easier, we're going to cross reduce. 3 goes into 3 one time, 3 goes into 60. 3 goes into 6 two times, therefore it goes into 60 20 times. This is 4 over 1, which is just 4, times 20 over 1, which is just 20. 4 times 20 is 80. So it took him 80 minutes to make it to his friend's house. Again, there are 60 minutes in an hour. 80 minus 60 leaves us with 20 minutes. So it took him 1 hour and 20 minutes to make it to his friend's house. So this one is going to be B. Again, you do have to know this formula for the test. Likewise, you have to be able to convert between hours and minutes and so on and so forth. That is something that does show up pretty frequently on this test. This ASVAB Pocket Arithmetic Reasoning Practice Test question says a sweater which was originally priced at $80 was marked down by 25%. What is the sale price of the sweater? So the sale price is going to be equal to the original price minus the original price times the discount amount. The original price we know, according to the problem, is $80. And the discount amount is 25%, which is 0.25 as a decimal, or 1/4 as a fraction. I'm going to use the fraction 1/4. What is 80 times 1/4? Well, place 80 over 1, and then you just multiply straight across. 80 times 1 is 80. 1 times 4 is 4. 80 divided by 4 is 20. So this becomes 80 minus 20, which you should know is going to be C, $60. This ASVAB PiCAT arithmetic reasoning practice test question says, if carpet cleaning costs 55 cents per square yard, how much will it cost to clean a carpet that is 16 feet by 18 feet? So right away, you should notice that there is a discrepancy. We're given dimensions of our carpet that are in terms of feet, notably 16 feet by 18 feet, and we're given the cost of cleaning the carpet in terms of yards, notably 55 cents per square yard. So in other words, we're going to have to make a conversion to solve this one specifically. We're going to have to convert these feet to be in terms of yards. And for that, you have to know that there are 3 feet in every 1 yard. So let's start by converting 18 feet to be in terms of yards. 18 divided by 3 is 6. So 18 feet is the same thing as 6 yards. Let's do the same thing for 16 feet. We're going to do 16 divided by 3. And at this point, I do not want to convert this. So I'm going to leave this as 16 over 3 yards, and you're going to see why in just a minute. Now, the cost to clean this carpet is in terms of square yards. So the next thing we have to do is find the area of this carpet. This carpet is a rectangle, so its area is going to be length times width. And we're going to be using the yards now. We know it's 6 yards long by 16 over 3 yards wide. And now we're multiplying a whole number by a fraction. We're going to make 6 into a fraction by placing it over 1. And when you multiply two fractions, you just multiply straight across. That said, you always want to cross reduce to make the math as easy as possible. 3 goes into 3 one time, 3 goes into 6 two times. This is 2 over 1, which is just 2, times 16 over 1, which is just 16. 2 times 16 is 32. So the area of our carpet is 32 square yards. All right, so now that we know its area, we can calculate the cost. It's going to be 32 square yards times the 55 cents per square yard to clean it. We want to clear this decimal in 0.55 by shifting it 2 times to the right. This becomes 32 times 55, albeit with 2 decimals to move back into our answer at the end. So let's go ahead and do this. 2 times 5 is 10, carry a 1. 3 times 5 is 15, plus 1 is 16. Before we start math with this 5 here, we have to add a 0 placeholder. 2 times 5 is 10, carry a 1. 3 times 5 is 15, plus 1 is 16. Let's add this up. 0 plus 0 is 0. 6 plus 0 is 6. 1 plus 6 is 7. 1 plus nothing is 1. Bringing back our 2 decimals, and that gets us there. So you can see that it's going to cost us a ASVAB PiCAT arithmetic reasoning practice test question says, at Lowe's, you bought 2 boxes. The first box has a square base. Each side of its base measures 10 units, and it is 4 units high. The second box is rectangular, and it has twice the volume of the square box. If the height of the second box is 5 units and its width is 10 units, what is the length of the second box? So in this case, we're comparing the volume, in case it's not obvious, of 2 rectangular prisms. How do you find the volume of a rectangular prism? It's length times width times height. And I'm going to write that formula down twice since we're comparing the volume of 2 different boxes. Again, according to the problem, this second box has twice the volume of this first box. So that said, let's find the volume of this first box. It has a square base, so its length and width are both going to be 10. And its height, according to the problem, is 4. So its volume is 10 times 10, which is 100 times 4, which is 400 square units. Again, this second box has twice the volume. 400 times 2 is 800. We're going to be solving for its length. Its width, according to the problem, is 10, and its height is 5. So this becomes 800 equals 10 times 5 is 50. So this is 50 L. To get L by itself, we're going to divide both sides of this equation by 50. This crosses out, leaving you with L on this side. Cross out these corresponding zeros. 40 divided by 5 would be 8. 80 is double 40. So 80 divided by 5 is going to be double 8, which is going to be 16. So the length of this second box is D 16 units. ASVAB PiCAT Arithmetic Reasoning Practice Test question says John purchased a shirt for 22.05. If this includes a 5% sales tax, what was the actual price of this shirt? So let's let X equal the actual price of this shirt. We know this is going to be 22.05. That is the total cost that includes the sales tax is equal to, again, we have a 5% sales tax. So this is going to be 1.05 times X, the actual price. So to get X by itself, we're going to divide both sides of this equation by 1.05. In doing so, this crosses out, leaving us with X on this side. Now we got to do some long division here. This reads 22.05 divided by 1.05. You can't do long division where there's a decimal outside the division bracket. So I have to move this decimal 2 times to the right, and I have to move this decimal corresponding number of times, 2 times to the right. So this becomes 2205 with no decimal divided by 105 with no decimal. So let's go ahead and work this out. How many times does 105 go into 2? It doesn't. How many times does 105 go into 22? It doesn't. How many times does 105 go into 220 without going over? That's going to be 2 times. 105 times 2 is going to be 210. Let's subtract this out. 220 minus 210 is 10. And now we drop down this 5. How many times does 105 go into 105 without going over? That's 1 time. 105 times 1 is 105, so we have no remainder here. So the correct answer to this one, the actual price of the shirt without sales tax included, is D, $21. ASVAB PiCAT Arithmetic Reasoning Practice Test question says a train goes twice as fast downhill as it can go uphill and 2/3 as fast uphill as it can go on level ground. If it goes 120 miles per hour downhill, how long will it take to travel 45 miles on flat land? So to solve this one, we need the distance formula. That is, distance is equal to rate times time. We know the train is traveling 45 miles on flat land, so distance is going to be 45. We're trying to figure out how long. How long is in reference to t or time. That said, we got to determine what the rate of the train is. And to do that, we're going to work backwards. Again, we know how fast the train goes downhill. According to the problem, it goes 120 miles per hour downhill. According to the problem, likewise, we're told that it goes twice as fast downhill as it can go uphill. So if it goes 120 miles per hour downhill, and that's twice as fast as it can go uphill, that must mean it goes 60 miles per hour uphill. And finally, we're going to figure out how fast it's going across level ground. And right here it says it goes 2/3 as fast uphill as it can go on level ground. So 60 miles per hour is equal to 2/3 as fast as the train can go on level ground. So we're going to solve this one for L, and that will be our rate that we can plug into the distance formula here. Let's clear this fraction in front of L by multiplying both sides of the equation by its reciprocal, notably by 3/2. This crosses out here and here, leaving you with L over here. Let's do this math very quickly. I'm going to write 60 as a fraction by placing it over 1. 2 goes into 2 one time, 2 goes into 60 30 times. This is 3/1, which is just 3, times 30/1, which is just 30. 3 times 30 is 90. So this train goes 90 miles per hour across level ground. So we have everything we need to solve this one. Again, we know distance is 45 miles. We know its rate across level ground is 90 miles per hour. So let's plug that in. And we know we're going to be solving for t. To solve for t, we're going to divide both sides by 90, of course. This crosses out, leaving you a t over here. 45 over 90 reduces to 1/2. Again, 45 divided by 45 is 1. 90 divided by 45 is 2. So in other words, it's going to take this train half of an hour to cover those 45 miles. So this one is C. There are 60 minutes in an hour. And if you didn't know that, half an hour is equal to 30 minutes. You do 60 times 1/2. Write this as a fraction by placing it over 1. This is 60 over 2, which is 30. So that's how we got the 30 minutes there.